Hi, my name is Zach Sherman. Today I'm going to be talking about my strategic audit of AB InBev, otherwise known as Anheuser-Busch, for my seminar management strategy and policy course, otherwise known as Business 491. So current strategy. So where they're at the industry. So Anheuser-Busch, otherwise known as AB InBev, is the largest beer producer on the planet and the second largest beverage producer. They have a massive brand portfolio, including Corona, Bud Light, Budweiser, Stella, and more. They control about 26.9% of the global market and 34% of the US. Competitors like Heineken control about 12.9% of the global market, and they produce around 585 million hectoliters of beer per year. And as you can see on this chart here, it's a list of the most profitable or highest revenue in 2023 for beverage companies. And as you can see, Anheuser-Busch is number two, barely at that number two spot, but you can see it is by far one of the biggest beverage manufacturers, by far the biggest alcohol manufacturer, and almost the biggest total drink manufacturer. So it's a massive company. Financials. So how they're doing financially. So the company has generated over 59 billion global 2024. Their premier brand Budweiser generated 13.8 billion globally in 2024 and 5.3 billion in the US. The company has invested billions into facilities and its infrastructure, but even with high revenue, poor acquisitions, PR blunders, and changing consumer habits have left the company with high levels of debt. Despite this, the company's evaluation is expected to increase um, from 129 to 150 billion by 2029. And this chart here, you can see it goes from 2004 up to 2024 or 2025, and you can see the increase per year in profit. So you can see year over year, it's slowly increasing. Obviously, a couple ups and downs, but for the most part, it's a pretty linear progression. So their mission statement. So as you can see, we have their mission right here. So they dream big to serve up new ways to meet life's moments, move the industry forward, and create meaningful impact in communities where everyone can celebrate and share. So essentially, their mission of creating a future where everyone can share is very reflective in their policy. They've invested billions into communities to provide fresh water and jobs. They've invested into responsible consumption, and they engage in strategic partnerships. So, overall, the mission sets up company goals and expectations, emphasizes the importance of sustainability and ethical practices, and the mission frames the company style as a lifestyle brand. So, what I kind of mean by that is they're not necessarily, pushing or marketing, the actual product and being like, oh, this beer tastes like this, or the hops in this. They're more so selling the experience that goes along with drinking their product or engaging with their product. So, like going to a sports game and drinking a beer with your friends, right? So, they're trying to more so sell the experience that goes along with drinking their product, not necessarily the product itself. And as you can see here as well, they have their 10 core principles. These principles kind of highlight, what the company goals are and expectations, especially for, new people coming into the company. They have an idea of kind of what to expect and what they do. And it also helps, current employees know what, what the end goal or what they're kind of striving to do. So in terms of top management, their board of directors has about 15 members, or about it has 15 members, four independent directors, eight appointed by Anheuser-Busch, and three representatives. So all of them have vast backgrounds from business and finance to food, beverage, health, and they all have vast international connections. So, regardless, they have guys, in finance, health, so they all have different expertise in different fields. So when they come together, they can kind of offer different input and value that certain other members may not have. So they're all useful and they all offer something that another one may not. So they're all very useful and valuable to the company. And the board is also engaged in all active decision making and planning, not just approving proposals. So they're not sitting in a room stamping a proposal, they're actively forming policy and helping to shape the company. In terms of top management, they're led by Michael Dukris, their CEO, Fernando Tenenbaum, their CFO, and John Blood, their CLO or Chief Legal Officer. The chief has a strong financial background, and most decisions are data and performance driven. Decision making is highly centralized and hierarchy structured. Um, Essentially, kind of think of it like a pyramid. People report up. Decisions are kind of done toward the top. But it's very hierarchy structured and very centralized. So executives are highly involved in all planning and decision making. So similar to the board, they're not just stamping approvals; they're actively engaging in helping to shape policy, reform, and anything else that goes along with that. And management does hold shares in the company, but the majority shares lie with the founding families and major investment groups. So, eternal analysis or external analysis. So, some key opportunities are targeting emerging markets, technological development, and product diversification. And some key threats would be the availability of fresh water, economic and global instability, changing consumer preferences, and a changing government and constant changing government regulations. So these opportunities kind of speak to the need for technological development in order to identify target markets and potential consumer trends. So this could mean, technological drivers like AI to help, detect what regions, maybe untapped and, could be profitable, or what regions or what kind of customer base may like certain products to kind of help properly push out initiatives. So, and these threats kind of speak to the growing concern that the market has kind of matured with this current strategy. And with the majority of the market covered, they're going to have to diversify and kind of focus on changing consumer trends. So, I mean, they control a majority of the market, and they're going to have to make some moves to try to identify new customers, new markets, emerging markets. It's extremely important. They don't want to plateau. They don't want to continue it. They want to have continued growth. And the only way to continue growth in a mature market is to expand and differentiate. So, external factors. So, issue. Though the company has many threats they need to handle, including economic instability, changing regulations and consumer preferences, and availability of clean water. So, some principles applied at large are sustainability and innovation, as growth must be sustainable and tech enabled. They must be resilient, as a global business must be operationally flexible to external shocks, and they must be responsive, as competitive success requires swift alignment with regulatory and consumer changes. Some alternatives could include accelerating investment into their digital transformation to improve agility and consumer insight. They could build strategic partnerships in target markets to offset localization risks and reduce regulatory friction. They can expand ESG product driven innovation to appeal to socially and environmentally conscious customers. And they could innovate faster in health conscious and non alcoholic beverages to match evolving consumer trends. And although the company is faced with many external threats, it is in their best interest to navigate and capitalize on their opportunities, as it will be what dictates their long term success. So, external analysis, so global issues. So, the constant changing over government regulations, including taxes, tariffs, and environmental standards, are a huge part or have a huge impact on the company's bottom line. The company is so some principles. The company is acceptably or extremely susceptible to supply chain disruptions, as any increase in the cost of ingredients could increase production costs exponentially. Example would be if they have to find new ways to source clean water, could increase the cost on barley and hops production, which would overall increase production costs and affect margins. Um, and it could also lead to the cost being pushed onto the consumer, which with inflation and other global issues is not ideal for consumers at this time. And then some potential alternatives could include strengthening the crisis and supply chain management systems to mitigate external shocks like transport costs and tariffs. And they could also leverage their global distribution network and digital platforms like AI and Bs to help expand and identify emerging markets. So, in conclusion, the company is susceptible to changing global environment, but by investing into the proper tools and strategies, they can set themselves up for success in any market. So, internal analysis. So, some key strengths are their strong distribution network, their brand recognition, and their diverse product portfolio. So obviously, due to their size, they have a ton of different supply chains and operations and facilities all over the world. They're extremely efficient. They pump out millions of products all over the world at a low cost. Their brand recognition, you can find their products all over the world with the same consistency. Our customers can expect the same consistency every time. And in terms of their diverse product portfolio, they have other products like Cutwater that help cater to non-beer drinkers. So their weakness is their overdependence on mature markets, their high levels of debt, supply chain issues, and slow diversification. So these strengths kind of underscore the company's strong public image and diverse product portfolio, while the weaknesses highlight the vulnerabilities specifically to that high production volumes expose it to significant financial risks in the event of supply chain disruptions or a decline in beer sales. So like as I stated, the company could be at huge risk if consumer preferences change and they're not drinking beer. They're going to be sitting on a lot of inventory. Same with any issue with production or cost of ingredients. Any issue with ingredient could have massive impacts on all their products. So, internal factors analysis. So, the company's internal strengths are a strong distribution network, brand recognition, and a diverse product portfolio. Weaknesses are an overdependence on mature markets, high levels of debt, ongoing supply chain issues, and slow diversification. Some principles that are applied are operational efficiency. So they need to maximize the value of their core competencies, such as distribution and brand equality. Focus on their strategic risk management by addressing structural vulnerabilities that threaten long-term stability, and focus on sustainable innovation by pursuing new product and market development to maintain a competitive advantage. And alternatives could include reinforcing the strength of its distribution system by investing in logistics and digital platforms, launch initiatives aimed at reducing dependency on mature markets through tailored growth in emerging regions, and prioritize debt reduction while streamlining operations to free up capital for innovation, and accelerate diversification into trending segments such as low alcohol or non-alcohol, premium beverages, or sustainable products. So, as a whole, the company is in good position to combat these weaknesses and utilize their strengths, but building resilience through operational refinement and diversification will better position the company to meet future challenges. So, eternal analysis, ethical issue. So, the most important ethical issue facing the company today revolves around sustainability and responsible marketing. So the company is facing global pressure to reach its sustainability goals. Failure to be proactive can lead to massive renovation costs and poor public reception. So the government regulations and stuff regarding sustainability and the environment, are constantly shifting. And failure to kind of meet these regulations could result in needing to renovate facilities, which can get very expensive. So it's very important to be proactive on these things. In terms of alternatives, InBev does have 2025 sustainability goals that would help place them as an industry leader in ESG reporting. So, as you can see right here from their website, they have kind of a plan of what they're doing for their 2025 sustainability goals. In terms of smart agriculture, 100% of their direct farmers are skilled, concentrated, and financially empowered. In terms of circular packaging, 100% of their products will be in packaging that is returnable or made from a majority recycled content. Water stewardship, 100% of communities in high sensitive areas will have measurably improved water availability. And climate action, 100% of purchased electricity comes from renewable sources and 25 reduction of carbon emissions across the value chain. So on top of these, possible alternatives could be to implement a strict process for reviewing marketing campaigns to ensure they're ethical and inclusive, to enhance transparency in reporting, specifically sustainability efforts, for example, providing measurable and verifiable data, and strength compliance programs to strengthen anti-competitive behavior, or to prevent anti-competitive behavior and strengthen adherence to legal standards. So addressing these issues will not only improve the company's brand image, but also increase its competitive advantage in an industry where ethical behavior is being intrinsically tied to long-term success. So financial issue. So the main financial issue the company is facing is centered around debt management, changing regulations, and inflationary pressures. The company's current financial issues are its high leverage and sensitivity to commodity cost increases, particularly in aluminum and agricultural inputs. Rising inflation also puts pressure on consumers who may become more cost sensitive. To combat this, the company can refinance long term debt to gain short term liquidity, adjust pricing strategies to combat inflation and protect margins, and move capital from underperforming products to high growth areas. Prioritizing aggressive debt management like strategic redeployment or smart pricing would help protect margins against rising inflation and production costs. Looking to the future, AB InBev needs to balance capital planning and digital expansion with ESG regulations. So, some key SWOT takeaways. So, brand reputation, distribution channels, and product portfolios are the company's biggest strengths. The company is extremely susceptible to supply chain disruptions, rising material costs, and has a very high debt. Consumer preferences and government regulations are changing, and AB InBev needs to be flexible and proactive to avoid being left in the past. These tell us that the company's biggest assets are its distribution channels, brand, and brand image, but company is near its market maturity and overdependent on current suppliers. Strategic alternatives. So some potential alternatives. So the first would be a targeted growth and differentiation strategy. This would mean beginning non-alcoholic product expansion to meet consumer demand. By targeting new market segments, the company can improve and grow its brand reputation while offering significant long-term potential. However, it does come with high upfront costs and risk taking away from the company's core beer products if not done properly. The second would be a regional retrenchment with a cost leadership focus, which would entail concentrating efforts on higher performing markets, cost efficiency, while reducing exposure in smaller markets. This would help protect profitability during inflation and economic uncertainty, but would weaken the global brand and competitive advantage over time. Finally, they could fine tune current strategies. This could mean refining AI, technology initiatives, or updating sustainability goals. While the company has been focused on premiumization, sustainability, and digital transformation, it is unclear whether these will be enough in an ever changing market. So, all of these alternatives would help combat rising pressure from global economic instability, changing consumer preferences, demand for sustainable products, tightening regulations, and sustainability issues. So, any potential strategy would have to be based on the principles of long term value creation, strategic alignment, market trends, and organizational adaptability. Given that, the most effective alternative that I could suggest given the environment would be a targeted growth and differentiation strategy. Okay, so my recommended strategy. So the issue, the industry is changing rapidly, along with consumer preferences constantly shifting. Company needs a way to identify future needs while finding ways to meet current ones. A targeted growth strategy would allow the company to pick specific target markets where they believe the product may do better, while the differentiation aspect would allow them to expand into products outside of beer. So essentially what they kind of need to do is they're a legacy brand, right? And younger generations are starting to drink less and less. So with their customer base getting older and they're not acquiring um, new customers that are drinking beer, they have really no other choice but to invest in figuring out what products customers are actually gravitating toward now. And I would recommend investing more into AI as well, so they can actually investigate and collect data to figure out what brands are successful where and what products are successful where. They also could look to acquire other successful brands in that region as a way of acquisition and gain a foothold in the region, which could also help tremendously with growth and yeah. So they need to target what markets their products can or will be successful in, and they need to figure out what demographics to target. And a targeted growth strategy would allow for all of that. To achieve this, it must start at the corporate level by investing in sustainable non-alcoholic beverages while focusing on geographical expansion into emerging markets. So this could mean looking at Asia and other countries abroad that, like India, for example, that have a very high population that may not all be exposed to the product or may have a certain product they like that the company can identify and produce. So it's about figuring out what kind of markets are available and how to best service them. So using technical drivers is a great way to do it. Um, and just reading the room. So, like, what the government regulations are looking like in the area can dictate whether or not it's worth doing. So, it's a real effort, and there's a lot that goes into it, but it's extremely important, especially in a legacy brand, to keep profits and everything to where it's at and to keep it growing. So, on the business level, differentiation is key as they must highlight their health focused branding, sustainable leadership, and by, like, as stated, continue to improve digital channels. And then lastly, on the functional level, they have to be flexible and able to change based on department. So obviously, government regulations constantly changing, sustainability regulations and initiatives constantly changing, need to be extremely flexible. Consumer preferences constantly changing, need to be extremely flexible. Standing firm in your ground is how you lose your market share. That's how you lose where you're at. So lastly, in conclusion, these strategies would address short-term issues like inflation and shifting demand while creating long-term competitiveness by accelerating innovation and sustainability. So, in conclusion, AB operates in a rapidly evolving global market marked by both internal limitations like an overdependence on mature markets and high debt. External challenges like shifting consumer preferences, regulatory pressures, and environmental constraints are also an issue. At the same time, it does possess formidable strengths in brand equity, distribution scale, and product strength. Alongside opportunities in emerging markets and technological innovation, they can proceed into the future decades and generations. So, principles. A targeted growth theory is best, or a targeted growth and differentiation theory is best, as it would allow the company to identify and develop emerging markets while expanding their product portfolio to meet changing consumer preferences. So, alternatives. To achieve this, the company should focus on product differentiation, specifically health oriented products, technological development like AI to help detect emerging markets, focus on responsible marketing, and be flexible in an ever changing world. In conclusion, through my suggestions, AB InBev would be able to leverage its brand and global presence to expand in emerging markets and diversify its portfolio with innovative, value added offerings. A focused, adaptive, and value driven approach will ensure both resilience and relevance in the years and decades ahead. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.